Have you ever wondered what's really going on behind the scenes of our economy? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on microeconomics. It might sound a little intimidating, but trust me, it's the secret rulebook that shapes everything from your morning coffee to your entire career. Let's jump in.
So, to get us started, here's a little puzzle for you. What could your job and your mortgage possibly have in common? I mean, one is about earning money, the other is about borrowing it. They seem like totally separate worlds, right?
Well, it turns out they are run by the exact same incredibly powerful principle: supply and demand. Just take a look at these two graphs. They might be in Spanish, but you don't need to be a linguist to see they're basically identical. One shows the supply and demand for workers, the other shows the supply and demand for loans. This one simple model is the key to unlocking everything, and it's where we're going to start.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll see just how universal this supply and demand model is. Then, we're going to ask a really important question. Are the outcomes actually good for us? After that, we'll explore what happens when the model breaks and markets go wrong. And finally, we'll piece it all together to create a map of the entire competitive landscape.
All right, part one. Let's put this model through its paces. We're going to see how this simple idea applies to two of the biggest markets out there, ones that affect pretty much every single one of us: the market for jobs and the market for credit.
So, let's break down the job market. That upward sloping line, that's us, all of us, the workers, supplying our labor. And that downward sloping line, that's the companies, demanding our skills. And right where they cross, at that equilibrium point, the market finds its sweet spot, the perfect wage to balance the number of jobs with the number of people wanting them.
And now look at the credit market. It's the exact same logic. You've got the supply of money from people who save, and you've got the demand for money from people who want to borrow. And the price that makes it all work? Well, that's the interest rate. It's the same X marks the spot diagram, just with dollars instead of jobs. Pretty cool, right?
Okay, so these markets find a balance. They find an equilibrium. But here's the million-dollar question. Is that outcome actually, good? How can we measure if society as a whole is really better off? To do that, economists use a couple of really clever tools.
The first one is called consumer surplus, and I guarantee you've felt this before. Think about the last time you bought something and thought to yourself, wow, I would have paid way more for this. That little jolt of happiness, that feeling of getting an amazing deal, that's consumer surplus. It's the extra value you get, put into economic terms. Let's see what that looks like on a graph. Okay, so when the price is really high, the consumer surplus is just this tiny little shaded triangle right here. That's the entire good deal feeling for the whole market. Not much, is it?
But now watch what happens as the price drops. Whoosh. That shaded area gets way, way bigger. And that's the big takeaway here. A lower price means a much larger consumer surplus. The total benefit that we, the consumers, get from the market just shot way up.
But of course, there are two sides to every coin. We need to look at the other side of the transaction, which brings us to producer surplus. This is the benefit the seller gets. It's the gap between the price they get for their product and what it actually costs them to make it. You can think of it as a measure of their profit or their well-being.
And as you'd probably guess, this works in the opposite way for producers. When the price is low, that producer surplus, this little shaded area here, is pretty small. There's just not a lot of profit going around.
But as that price starts to climb, their surplus area gets bigger and bigger. And this brings us right to the fundamental tension in any market, right? We consumers want low prices, but producers, they want high prices.
So, how do we find the best outcome for everybody? Well, we just add them together. Consumer surplus plus producer surplus gives us total surplus, which is basically a way to measure the total happiness or welfare of society. And here's the really amazing part. When a free market is in equilibrium, that magical spot where supply meets demand, the total surplus is as big as it can possibly get. The economic pie is maximized.
Now that's the ideal theory, but as we all know, the real world is a lot messier. Sometimes markets just don't get it right. They don't allocate resources efficiently, and we call these situations market failures.
A market failure is basically a crack in that perfect system. It's when the market, if you just leave it alone, ends up with a really bad result for society. This usually happens because there are all these hidden costs or benefits that the simple price tag doesn't capture. And one of the biggest reasons for this is something called an externality. Think of an externality as a side effect. A negative externality is a harmful one. The classic example is pollution. A factory makes its product, but society has to bear the cost of dirty air. That's a hidden social cost.
On the flip side, you have positive externalities, which are beneficial side effects. Like when universities educate people, all of us benefit from having a smarter, more innovative population. That's a hidden social benefit.
And it's not just side effects. You also get market failures from things like public goods. Think national defense or lighthouses. We all benefit, so no single person has an incentive to pay for them. Then there's information asymmetry. Just think about buying a used car. The seller knows if it's a lemon, but you don't. That imbalance of information can totally wreck a market.
Okay, for our last section, let's pull all these ideas together and build ourselves a map of the real-world economy. Because not all markets are the same. They actually exist on this wide, fascinating spectrum of competition.
And it turns out we can classify just about any market out there by asking two really simple questions. Number one, how many companies are competing? And number two, are their products all basically the same or are they different from each other? These two factors are all we need to draw our map.
And here is that map. At the very top, we have the number of firms, from many to a few to just one. So on one extreme end, when you have many firms all selling an identical product, you get what's called perfect competition. And on the complete opposite end, with just one single firm, you get a monopoly. Now let's explore what's in between.
This table lays it all out perfectly. But I want you to look closely at the row for price power. As you move from left to right, from perfect competition over to monopoly, look at how the power completely shifts. A farmer selling corn is a price taker. They have zero control. But by the time you get to a company with a patented drug, they are a price maker. They have immense control. This progression, it really determines the prices you pay for almost everything.
So what's the big takeaway here? Why does this all matter so much? This quote just nails it. As a market gets less competitive and moves toward a monopoly, two things happen. Companies make less of the stuff we want, and they charge us a higher price for it. Remember that big economic pie we talked about? Well, it shrinks. And that means there's just less value for everyone in society.
So we'll leave you with this question to think about. Now that you have this map, from perfect competition all the way to monopoly, take a look around you. Think about the phone you're using, the car you might drive, even the apps you use. Which of these market structures are really shaping your world? And what does that mean for you?